Hey guys, how's it going? So after making my last video, I thought that, perhaps I'd like to help some of the people who are interested in playing Kerbal Space Program, but, they don't really know how to, if they're just starting out and they just want to get going, but, because I was in that position once where when I first started Kerbal Space Program, I wanted to learn quite a bit of things, but my resources were a little limited, or things just weren't as clear to me, and it took a little while for me to even learn how to get myself in orbit, which is like practically the most basic of things compared to what you can do. So, I thought that I'd help out you beginners out there with just how to fly and an overview of how everything works. I believe there is a video on YouTube that teaches you, and more or less it's about the same. However, the version that it comes from is a little outdated. So I thought I might, make a video on the newest version where there's a career mode and things are just slightly different. Alright, so when you first start the game, um, I think if you've never played before, it'll only say start new. So, you can play either the sandbox mode or the career mode. The sandbox would be where everything's unlocked, and, this is a good mode if you just want to fly in general, just have some fun, or if you perhaps want to try something out in career mode, see if it's possible, or just flat out testing things out. Career mode was introduced relatively recently, and it's basically where you have to unlock parts by um, what you do is that you get scientific observations from instruments, or you can do crew reports, and basically by completing the missions you gain science, and with this science you can unlock things, um, and you can unlock better and better things as you go. I'll explain that in a bit. So I think I'll explain the career mode a little bit because that's got quite a few features. Let's change our flag to something a little more interesting. Um, why not? Let's go with that. Alright, so let's let this thing load. When you first load, you come up to this, and there's multiple facilities you can go to. So the first one I'll talk about is the research and development over here. And this is where you basically cash in your science for the parts. And how this works is that there's something called a tech tree, which is basically, you know, you start here, and then there's the next level that unlocks parts over here, and it says that it'll require 5 science. So basically, this up here shows how many science points you have, and you can unlock once you have enough science, of course. And basically, as you unlock and unlock, this entire thing will expand out more and more, and it basically branches out like a tree, and you can unlock more and more parts. So that's basically the whole idea of career mode. Moving on over here to the astronaut complex is basically where you can hire astronauts. It doesn't cost anything to hire them, so I'd recommend just hiring all of them, just so you don't have to go back in case you kill a few. Kill a few. Sorry about that. Um, so just hire all of them for the sake of ease. Over here's a space plane hangar, and in Kerbal Space Program, in addition to rockets, you can also build planes that are capable of going into space, or just land planes. Um, you know, that's something I'm not that great at. I'm still kind of a beginner at it. I haven't played with space planes very much, so yeah. Over here is the main building that I work in. It's called the Vehicle Assembly Building. This is where all the rockets are assembled, and I'll get to that one first. Over here would be the tracking station, and basically over here is where you can monitor all your missions across the Kerbin system, the solar system. And we don't have any flights up at the moment, so we won't see anything over here in the flights in progress. Once we get things in orbit, though, we'll be able to work with this. Finally, here's the launch pad, and over here you can launch the rockets, of course. And we haven't built any rockets yet, so we can't launch anything yet, of course, but we'll get to that. So, with all the, well, I guess I haven't covered the runway, but it's pretty self-explanatory. It's the runway from which you can launch your space planes, like the launch pad. So, yeah, I've covered everything now, so I think over here is where we should go next, and I think I should explain to you how the building process works for rockets. Okay, so we're in the hangar. We've got all our little Kerbals walking around, working hard. And so we should introduce a few parts of this, starting with the top left. So in the top left, there's tabs from which you can select parts based on category, such as the pods, propulsion, science, utility, and things like that. Up here, um, over here, you can rename your spacecraft. So let's call it um, Rocket 1 or something like that. There we go. Over here, I thought you could change the flag. I guess you can't, but let's see. To the top right, there's options here. Right now, we don't have very many options. Let's see. But anyways, this one is new, which in which you can scrap your rocket for a new one. This one's load, where you can load up a rocket that you've previously built and saved. This one's the save. This one would be the launch, and this one would be the exit button. So let's see. Let's begin, since we've introduced everything. And so the most basic part that you start with any rocket is the pod, which is the module that holds the Kerbinaut. And when you start out, you'll only start out with one pod, which would be the command pod MK1. When you hover over items, it'll show you like the item itself in 3D, rotating. And then to the right of that, it shows the stats, such as crash tolerance, max temperature, all that stuff you don't really need to worry too much about. Um, I guess the crash tolerance would be something to look at if you want to get something on the surface of a planet, because if you don't have enough parachutes to slow something down to that velocity or less, you're gonna end up blowing up the part. So to select an item, you click on it, of course, and you've got your pod right here. And the controls for moving around would be the right mouse to rotate around your rocket, and to move any parts in the Kerbal Space Program, you left click on it and you can move it as you wish. Okay, so the next part would be a parachute, which is filed under utility. So we left click on this and it'll automatically drag it out. And to put parts on other parts, it's really simple. You just stick the part on where you want it to go, and then you left click and it goes right on. Okay. I don't think our rocket will be too big because we don't have very many parts. So we can scroll up and down to move up and down. Alright, let's move it down here. And the next thing we'll need is propulsion. Otherwise, we won't be able to get off the ground, of course. And that's the second tab. Over here we've got 3 items to start with. We've got a liquid engine, solid boosters, and a fuel tank. And I think we should start out with liquid because I think I'll be able to introduce throttling that way, because with these solid boosters, once you fire them, they basically burn until they run out of fuel, where with the liquid engines, they can be turned on and off, and you can control the thrust at will. So, with any liquid rocket, you'll need a fuel tank with that, so let's stick one on there on the bottom. And with these fuel tanks, you can stack them, so the more you stack, the more fuel you'll get. So let's put like 4, or I think we could put 5, that's fine. Not sure if we have enough to get into orbit, but I guess we can try, right? So after that comes the liquid fuel engine. Alright, let's move this up a tiny bit. And basically as easy as that, you're ready to fly. Well, at least almost. We forgot about the bottom, where is it? The bottom right portion. One important thing that you always have to check is the staging, which is the order of how parts activate on the spacecraft. And now with the most simple rockets like this, it's not that difficult to arrange the staging, but once you have really complex rockets, it's really important to check your staging, because you'll have like 9 or 10 different stages at that point. And if you have one that's misplaced and doesn't fire in time, you're in the middle of space, it pretty much screws you over. So yeah, always check that. So let's see. So basically, how staging works is that the bottom stages will always fire first, and it basically goes up. And right now we don't have any other stage other than the first one. Um, so here, I'll show you what I mean in a sec. So right now it's set so that when you launch, the engines will fire and the parachute will come out at the same time. And we don't want that. We want the parachute to come out after the engine is finished. So we will want to make another stage for that. And how we do that is that we hover over the current stage. There's a plus or minus, which is to add or remove a stage. So hitting the plus adds a stage, and we've got a stage on the bottom. And since we want our liquid engine to fire first, we click on that, we drag it to the first box, and it'll move there. And now our rocket is designed so that when we launch, the engines will fire, and then when we stage again, the parachutes will fire, and hopefully bring us back down. Alright, so I wonder what else we can add to this. I don't know, I think we should really start off basic first. It's quite a bit to learn to pilot the rocket. So this rocket is ready as it is. So we should hit the save button to save this, and the launch button to launch. Okay, we're now on the launch pad. Jebediah Kerman's our first Kerbonaut. He's ready to launch. Alright, and in career mode, one of the most important things would be to, whenever you get an opportunity is to make a crew report or use your scientific instruments to get some science in regions that you haven't explored before. That's always a good thing to do. Whether you'll get no science or not, you can always choose to discard the data or keep the data. It's always good to double check in case you miss anything that could land you a lot of science. So, one of the ways that you get science in the early stages would be to do something called a crew report. And to do that, you hover over your command pod, you right click, and it brings up options. And I guess I'll explain this really briefly. So over here, there's options that you can toggle or activate. You can do this for any part. Some parts don't have options to toggle, um, but most of them will have information such as liquid fuel, how much fuel you have left, and um, it'll also display things such as how much electricity you have left. So in the case for the parachute, you can set the altitude from which it will deploy, or the pressure from which it will deploy. And there's also the manual button to deploy it as well. So anyways, let's get to the command pod. You can do something called a crew report. Let's click on that. And basically, you'll record data, and it'll tell you how much science you'll get. And for this one, you'll get 1.5 science. So over here, it'll give you the option to reset it, to keep the data, or to transmit it. And in order to transmit data, you need an antenna, which will come a little bit later in the tech tree. So for now, we can't transmit our data, so we'll just have to keep it. And one thing you can also do is go outside of your spacecraft and take something called an EVA report. And to do that, you hover over the little Kerbal knot over in the bottom right. You click EVA, and it'll show him outside. You right click on him and click on the EVA report, and he says this is a most precarious situation. And it's kind of strange, I agree, but anyways, this will give us 5.6 science, and this is practically enough already to unlock the next item in our tech tree, so we can keep that. Over here it says F to board, so if you push F, you'll board back into the spacecraft. And okay, so I'm not sure how long the video is already, but I think I should split this into part 2 for flight controls, and I think I'll end the video right here.